Ray follows her and tries to console her, but Tiana angrily snaps and hurts Ray by calling Evangeline nothing more than a star that is millions of miles away from him, that he needs to open his eyes to the truth before he gets hurt, as she did. Still not convinced, Ray rushes back to the Mardi Gras parade and finds Frog Naveen, who has been kept prisoner in a locked box by Lawrence. After Naveen gets released, thanks to Ray, he stops the wedding by jumping onto the imposter and tugging the talesman hard to knock him off the float. Lawrence loses the talesman and is returned to his true form. Realizing its signification, Ray steals the voodoo talisman and flies away with it. Furious, the Shadow Man summons the shadows to chase Ray all the way to the cemetery to retrieve the talisman, with Lawrence staying out of sight under his order while holding Naveen captive. Ray finally meets up with Tiana and gives her the talisman, telling her the Naveen they saw with Charlotte is not really him, and making her promise to keep it out of the Shadow Man's possession when they saw the shadows coming for the talisman. She hops away with it while Ray stays behind to destroy as many shadows as possible with his flight. He kills a few of them. The Shadow Man knocks Ray to the ground and coldly steps on him without a second thought before wearing a disgusted impression and casually walks off. A few seconds later, Lewis comes running, calling for Ray, but finds the Firefly lying on the ground, mortally wounded. The shadows and the Shadow Man continue chasing Tiana before finally cornering her, but when she threatens to break the talisman into a million pieces, the Shadow Man casts an enchantment on her, causing her to look human again, and changes the setting to her dream restaurant. She thinks she sees Naveen playing the ukulele in the corner of the room. When the man turns around, she sees it isn't, and is disappointed. The Shadow Man tries to convince Tiana to hand over the talisman by offering to make her a deal, promising the restaurant and becoming a human again. When she refuses to bring up memories of her sacrifices and people doubting her abilities, finally he shows her the memory of how her father worked hard but failed to get enough money for a restaurant. He tells her that if she gives him the talisman, he'll turn her back into a human and give her everything she's ever dreamed of, everything she and her father always wanted. Tiana hesitates for a moment, but her eyes light up in realization. She explains that while it's true her father never got what he wanted, he had what he needed. He had love, and he had never lost sight of what was really important, and she'll never do the same too. Tiana throws the talisman to the ground, but it's snatched up by the Shadow Man's own shadow, and the illusion immediately disappears. The Shadow Man cackles, transforms Tiana back into a frog, and tells her that she should have taken his deal, but Tiana takes the talisman back using her tongue and shatters it into pieces. He's horrified and frets how he won't be able to pay back his debt. The talisman's broken state greatly angers the voodoo spirits, who come out to give the Shadow Man his punishment. Masks come out of the stone heads, asking if he's ready, which he replies that he isn't. Shrunken heads appear and voodoo dolls climb out of the ground. In terror, the Shadow Man says that he has lots more plans and still has Naveen locked away, making Tiana realize that Ray was telling the truth about the Naveen they saw with Charlotte. A shadow demon that came from inside an enormous mask drags in the Shadow Man's shadow, which in turn brings along the hysterical witch doctor himself into the voodoo world to sacrifice his soul as punishment for his unpaid debts with his terrified face engraved on a tombstone to indicate his death, much to Tiana's horror. After the Shadow Man's fate is sealed, Tiana heads back to the parade, where she sees Naveen talking to Charlotte, while the bumbling Lawrence was arrested and sent to the parish prison after he's been revealed to be a fraud. Naveen explains to Charlotte what happened to him and that if she kisses him before midnight, which is mere minutes away, he will become human again, and he will marry her. His only condition is that Charlotte has to give Tiana the money she needs for her restaurant, and in the process he calls her his Evangeline, making her feel deeply touched. Once she stops Charlotte and Naveen from making the kiss, calling out to the two. Tiana hops out of the shadows and confesses her love for Naveen, telling him that she'd rather not have her restaurant without him. Naveen reciprocates her love in return, and the two share a romantic moment of their proclaimed love. Charlotte is moved to tears that her friend is finally living the fairy tale she has always dreamed of, and agrees to kiss Naveen for Tiana, so they can both be human again and marry each other. She holds Naveen in her hands and leans in for the kiss, but it's too late. Midnight has come, and though she kisses him again, nothing happens, as Charlotte is no longer a princess. Before anything can be said between now content Tiana and Naveen, Louis rushes to them, holding a dying Ray in his hands. He lays Ray on the ground. He turns to Tiana and Naveen, asking them why they're still frogs, and they softly reply to him that the two of them are staying that way and together, thanks in part to him. Ray gives a weak smile, saying that he likes the latter, and Evangeline does too. His eyes slowly close, and he passes away in peace. As his light slowly flickers out, his three sad friends bring him back to the bayou for a funeral with his family. After they place his tiny body in a leaf with two flowers, Naveen and Tiana placed in and push it out across the water. Everyone starts to gasp and look up at the sky as bright white light shines down from above. Another star has appeared beside Evangeline, shining just as brightly. Everyone starts to cheer because they can see that Ray finally got his wish to be with Evangeline at last. The funeral then fades away to a wedding as animals from the entire bayou gather together to see Mama Odie officiate Naveen and Tiana's wedding ceremony. After she pronounces them frog and wife, they share a kiss and turn back into humans. Mama Odie laughs as the two figure out they have by becoming Naveen's wife. Tiana became a princess, and thus, kissing each other, broke the spell. The two return to New Orleans, where they have a second wedding ceremony, then by the old sugar mill from the real estate agents with some help from Louis, and work together, fixing up and eventually turning it into Tiana's Palace, a very successful upscale restaurant. We see Tiana and Naveen happily serving tables as Louis the Gator entertains the guests on stage with his trumpet and a band he performed with at the Mardi Gras parade, finally living his own dream. Tiana and Naveen go up to the roof, where they dance together and share a kiss beneath the stars. Tiana sings, "Dreams do come true in New Orleans," while Ray and Evangeline continue to shine brightly together in the night sky.